On this episode of Locally Grown, we join Robin and Christine at the Lighthouse Museum. Lighthouses. At one time, well over 1,000 of these tall, thin towers dotted the shores of America, lighting the way for sailors and leading them to safety during storms and the dark of night. Beacons of hope for thousands of men and women seeking a safe harbor. Used by man since 280 BC, the first colonial lighthouse was built in 1716 to guide mariners into Boston Harbor. Today, these structures are mostly obsolete thanks to GPS technology, and many have become endangered mementos of the past. But at the National Lighthouse Museum in St. George, their legacy lives on. Since its opening in 2014, the National Lighthouse Museum has been raising awareness about the iconic structures. It sits on the site of the U.S. Lighthouse Service General Depot on Staten Island, which was in service from 1864 to 1939. The depot served as a hub for lighthouses throughout the country, supplying them with lenses and other supplies. Following its closure during World War II, the depot nearly became a relic lost to time until 1998, when it was selected by the American Lighthouse Coordinating Committee to be transformed into the museum.
This is the site of the U.S. Lighthouse Service General Depot, where all lighthouse operations centered for the entire United States from 1864 to 1939. So this site is pretty famous because all the Fresnel lenses came here. They came from France. They were very important part of lighthouses, and they were brought on the site, and then they were shipped into the building right at the top here of the hill, and they were put together, and we were making sure that they did not break along the way. I don't know how many came broken, but they were pretty busy, apparently, because they were giving lenses to the entire United States. So after they made sure they weren't broken, they would then store them in the building right next door. And architects are designing lighthouses for the rest of the country. That was in Thornton, that was in the administration building here, and the keepers were being hired and moved on and paid, and things like that were happening.
The museum might not even exist without
Linda.
While initial plans included renovating the entire depot property, the plans were eventually put on hold. The fundraising board was dissolved, and renovation plans were reduced. She petitioned Albany to revive the museum charter, revive the board, and set fundraisers in motion, including the campaign for Illuminating Future Generations, whose goal is to raise money for the site's renovations and development exhibitions.
Renovating this, correct? Right. We're hoping to go to the building next door. That's the plan. We're trying to raise $35 million, and Her Royal Highness Princess Anne.
You hear that?
Yes.
Send in your donations.
Yes. That's a good idea.
Linda Diauto
plans on having a big fan in attendance of the museum. In October of 2022, the museum welcomed Princess Anne, who came to support this historic gem. A champion of the international lighthouse community, she was named an honorary chair of the Campaign for Illuminating Future Generations, which seeks to raise money for the expansion and renovation of the museum, as well as the development and preservation of exhibits and gallery space.
Coming to the United States. She's planned it twice already, but due to COVID,
Yes.
It's all been postponed. Hopefully we'll reschedule maybe by the end of this year. We'll try again. But she has already been signed on to be the honorary chair of our campaign to raise $35 million.
I would think she knows a lot of people that
Well, I think
donations.
she should. I mean, honestly, when I got a call from them, I was getting into the shower and the phone said no caller ID, so I just said okay. And I took my shower. When I came out, you would have done the same thing. When I come out, I find out that it's Buckingham Palace. And I didn't answer the phone, but you know what?
Did you believe that in the beginning?
But the truth of the
Because
matter
I could see Robin calling me, pretending to be. I could see that, Robin.
You would.
Hello, is this Christine?
Yes. Would you like to sell Buckingham Palace? Yes, you would.
Well, the truth of the
No,
matter is I was really happy that I captured it on my
Yes,
voicemail
that's
because
a good
no
idea.
one would have ever believed me.
No, that's true.
So that's
Play it
true.
back to people.
So I did.
Yes.
So I slammed it in my phone.
I always say everything happens for a reason.
That's right. So I'm glad I had it because my board would have never believed me. And every time we've tried the QM2, that's the Cunard Line's QM2, gave us their ship to host a beautiful luncheon pro bono on her ship 2 years ago. And because of COVID, we were not able to do that because we had all the ships went down and you know what happened.
Another thing COVID cost us.
Yes. And then
No,
there's
but
one.
that maybe We'll be able to do that eventually.
Right. And then she was coming again in January, this past January,
Yes.
and I put everything together. And then a week before, her husband got COVID, and we had the highest rate of COVID in New York City here in Staten Island. So they stopped it, and we had to reschedule, and we're hoping to reschedule, hopefully for maybe October of this year. So we don't know. She has a lot of scheduling to do herself, and you know, a piece
And
of
she probably has a
each
lot of things that she has to make up for because of COVID.
Exactly. And you didn't ask me a very important question. The question is, why would she come to the United States for us? So the answer
I'm thinking that she's in love with Lighthouse.
well, you're right.
In 2015, Princess Anne wrote about her passion for lighthouses. She even set the goal of visiting every lighthouse in Scotland. During her visit to Staten Island, she said, "I think lighthouses have been a particularly good way of educating people about the importance of maritime in all of its formats. It's not just about trade, but the impact of what we do to the sea and how we can look after it better, and the way in which it affects our lives." Celebrities aside, the museum has an exhaustive collection of lighthouse history, including displays on the range and the light sources used by the lighthouse keepers, detailed histories on the evolution of lighthouses, as well as biographies of many of the lighthouse keepers, including those from nearby Robbins Reef.
So from approximately 1820 on, men and women were welcomed into the Lighthouse service, and every major minority group in the United States participated in the service. Native Americans, African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Pacific Asian Islanders.
So the first diverse
First
organization.
diverse organization,
Correct. Very
and
nice.
also an organization that equaled pay equity and championed it long before the rest of the United States adopted it.
And this was like in the 1700s.
1800s.
1800s. So,
when
yeah.
we look into the payroll records, we find that it didn't matter what ethnic group you came from, whether you're a man or a woman. If you were a first-class keeper, you got the same exact salary as every other first-class keeper.
That's great.
Which is unique. It was 150 years ahead of its time in the sense of pay equality.
But obviously, though, more lighthouses were built as time went on, so there was more need for
keepers.
Keepers,
In
yes.
total, there have been 1,600 lighthouses built in the United States. Not all of them existed at the same time. Often they were built as a replacement for a prior station. Currently, we have 630 stations, 470 of which still are used as navigational aids. Many of them have been retired and are in joint custody. Robbins Reef is a good example of this out here in the harbor.
Of course.
The Coast
Well,
Guard.
this is Robin.
Oh, there we go.
That's my reef.
Notice
Who
how I
knew?
subtly worked that in.
yes.
The Coast Guard maintains the light in the top of Robbins Reef. They also maintain the fog cone organization, but the rest of the structure was bought by the Noble Maritime Museum, who are working to restore it, and they have a plan by 2024 to open it up as a bed and breakfast hotel.
Oh, wow.
So
Oh, we
you'll
going
be able
there.
to go out there and visit it, but you'll actually be able
We're
to
going there. That's very cool.
Now, and this is the same Noble Maritime Museum that's in Snug Harbor.
It certainly is.
Yes.
That's the same one as over in Snug Harbor.
Awesome.
So now when you're talking about the lighthouse keeper,
Yes, ma'am.
how long did they say, like how long was their service typically?
It varied. Some individuals came into the service, didn't like it, would only stay for like less of a year, then move on to another job. Other individuals we have in the service stayed there for lifelong service.
Wow.
Margaret Novell from Louisiana worked in the Lighthouse service for 40 years.
Wow.
Even when she retired, she was renowned for going to the local parks, New Orleans, sitting in the park with her binoculars and watching the lighthouses. And God help the keeper that didn't get that lighthouse on at the right time. She was on a bicycle to the nearest phone, calling up that station, wanting to know what's going on. Good for her. Robbins Reef, home of our own Kate Walker. Kate walked there for over 30 years.
Other displays detail the history of not just lighthouses, but of the museum and area itself, and including interesting facts such as the museum is located in the same land as the former New York Maritime Hospital, also known as the Quarantine.
So you already know about the Quarantine Hospital and everybody from Ellis Island being sent here to the Quarantine. So the Marine Hospital was 1799, 1801, if you take a look at this. But let's just see how far back this structure, this lighthouse museum that sits here now goes. You know, we have the U.S. Lighthouse Service that was established in 1789. But then look, we have the American Revolution. We have the first lighthouse in 1716. But take a look at this. This is so impressive. 280 BC, the first lighthouses were recorded. And of course, the pharaohs and Greek history discusses the ancient, the ancient world and the wonders, and that's included.
Well, fun fact,
Yes.
1670, this was Lenape Nation land, and actually my family came before this, somewhere between 280 BC to 1670. We were in the beginning of the 1600s that the Deharts came to Staten Island.
Which is really amazing, because how many families can say that they were original?
There's only 5 on Staten Island.
Wow. See? So that's pretty historic.
Let me
in
know
itself.
if you can name all 5.
So just take a look at this establishment and how important lighthouses. Obviously, it was beacons in the middle of the water that allowed for ships to see, points, checkpoints, and
See the Sandy Hook light?
Yeah.
Light. That is now, they called it, it's a little bit further in, and it's called the Sandy Hook light, not lighthouse. It's a beacon in the middle of the harbor.
So now this structure is actually building 11 from the very beginning. There are many buildings on the grounds, but this is the only renovated one currently that remains open.
Right.
I know there are plans to renovate the other buildings. We hope that does happen. But this was actually a facility that built lighthouses.
Correct. So this was for building them, maintaining them, and chipping them down.
So, I mean, if you take a look at
This is when it was created
The
as the
establishment.
depot.
right. So it became a depot. Wasn't there a merger between the Coast Guard and
That's
the
later
Lighthouse?
on in.
Okay. So, there's a lot of history here. And again, like we say, this is on our Staten Island, in our borough, that you could come to every day. Beautiful sitting area outside overlooking Manhattan, ferry right next door. Beautiful promenade to walk on, incredible.
Well, you're talking about that this was built to be a lighthouse depot where they're going to be able to build, construct, and send supplies out to lighthouses. But in 1939, which is what we're talking about, the Coast Guard took over and merged with them. And it became, in 1941, they basically commandeered these buildings and made them more for ship repairs in battle after Pearl Harbor. They were able to bring the ships here and get them repaired and back out to war.
That's amazing.
And it goes all the way to, you can see how much work they've been doing, all the way to 2014 when the actual National Lighthouse Museum opened its doors on the spot.
This is how much lighthouses were needed back then. Electric was only introduced in 1910 to the lighthouse construction. So just think how difficult it had to be.
And right now, lighthouses are fun to look at. They're nice. They're interesting. Back then, they were lifesavers because in the fog, you could not see the reef. You could not see the shore. And when they were coming in at night, if they couldn't see them, they were going to hit them, which is why the lighthouses actually became so that it would save lives. And they didn't have the technology we have.
No.
So they had to figure out where the shoreline was at night in the fog, and this is what they came up with.
Sure, and the museum itself offers lighthouse tours.
Yes.
You go on a beautiful boat that's right over here at the pier outside, and it'll take you to various lighthouses. So,
Right.
that's a very nice day to spend. doing something like that.